A court has ruled that Johnson & Johnson can't hide behind bankruptcy to avoid the lawsuits, to avoid being responsible. This company, look, they've known, let's see, for 4 decades that their product was causing cancer in women. And they knew the exact mechanics of how it was causing cancer. Wasn't any guesswork. Their lab studies showed it. Pick it up from there.
Yeah, they would go in their own studies and take the tumors out of the women who they were marketing these products to and find their own fibers that they could trace back. They knew it was their stuff. They knew what it was causing. They knew asbestos was in some of these. They knew 100% for many, many decades, told no one, and actually moved into a more aggressive marketing approach with it, going to predominantly minority communities, advertising this product as, hey, you don't have time to take a shower, toss on the baby powder. I mean, I've gone through just like you have. We've seen the advertising documents.
Yeah, it was a cultural issue.
Yeah.
They knew that their marketing was primarily for African American women. For whatever reason, that was passed on generation to generation. So they didn't want to change the formulation, which all they had to do was put something in there besides what they were putting in there to kill people. They didn't even need that thing to kill people. But they kept it on the market only because they invested so much into the branding of the market. And the documents show that. I mean, there was no problem fixing the problem. They knew they could do it. But what I find interesting about this, first of all, they go into bankruptcy. It's a $140 billion company, okay? Thank God we had good judges that reviewed that and said, really? I mean, you're really coming to us and saying you have to declare bankruptcy with $140 billion. And the judges that wrote that opinion are brilliant. I'm telling you, it was one of the best written opinions. I mean, it was so smart the way they approached it. Basically saying, have we just left our common sense at the door here? And so this judge, the judge that agreed to accept this was humiliated. I mean, absolutely humiliated.
Was it New Jersey, the judge, the original one was from?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I think it's an important decision. One thing it does is we see all of these companies trying to move there. They're all trying to say, well, we have to declare bankruptcy. I think the next one we were going to hear about was 3M, okay? 3M has caused so much suffering in this country with PFAS, with the hearing loss cases for servicemen. We were getting ready to see them make the same move. Let me tell you this opinion written by these brilliant, absolutely brilliant judges, I think they put a stop to it. So
yeah, and what people have to understand is that these major corporations, what they'll do is they create a new business entity and they'll spin off this, the bad product to the new entity that has zero money.
Yeah.
So they'll say, no, we don't own the talcum powder. That's owned by, Johnson & Johnson and Johnson. Yeah. And then the judge will say, okay, well, clearly they have no money, so all the liability pool, there's no money to pull from.
Let me segue into a story you know about because we did this story. There's this woman out there. Her name is Suzanne Spalding, okay? She comes from Homeland Security, Cybersecurity, CIA. Corporate America has grabbed her, okay? What they've done now is they're out talking about the idea of how dangerous it is to be critical of the justice system or the judiciary. Matter of fact, I've been under personal attack by this woman because we did a story on her. We uncovered the fact that she's so connected to corporate America. It's just a scam. She shows up at judges and lawyers conferences and talks about the idea how dangerous it is to talk about judges. We looked at the cases, the stories we've done. It's more than 95% of the time we're talking about good job, like this case, good job. But what's happening, and I think it's important to viewers because they're going to see some of this. It used to be 15 or 20 years ago, the Chamber of Commerce, who she's an extension of, or Associated Industry, who she's an extension of, used to go around and they would talk to the public about how bad trial lawyers were. They're trying to keep verdicts down. Now the new thing, let's convince judges that these lawyers are bad. So we're on to this. As a matter of fact, there's going to be a cover story magazine, a cover story in National Trial Lawyer magazine about her. and we're going to tell this story more and more. But in this situation, how can you say anything but say these judges did a wonderful job?
Yeah.
I mean, they're brilliant. And if you're an attorney reading their opinion, you see how critically smart they are. It's amazing to me. I always love to see that. And we see it in this case for sure. A special needs school in New York is being sued for running what one former employee called a complete scam that cost taxpayers millions of dollars. Lay this story out. You and I may have similar angles on it. I want to take another track on it. Go ahead.
This is an just start to finish. Every part of this story is horrendous. You have this iBrain school in New York, is what it's called, iBrain, and what they are is it's a special needs school. Give us your mentally disabled individuals, physically disabled. We're going to get them. We're going to give them an education. And finally, eventually, one of the workers there came out and has sued them because they said, among other things, and I'm going to try to get the whole list, but there's roaches and spiders everywhere. There was a dead rat carcass on the floor for days before anybody even bothered to move it. The smell is horrific. The black mold is dripping off of our ceilings. There are roaches in the children's wheelchairs. Oh, and by the way, they're performing illegal surgeries on these students with people that it turns out aren't actually doctors. They lied about their credentials.
Yeah. So what you have going here is you have there's supposed to be oversight here, right?
Yeah.
There's supposed to be regulatory oversight. This goes on apparently for years. The whistleblower described it as a filthy environment. Then she points out that part of the lawsuit, anyway, it still hadn't gone to court, but the lawsuit is that the people running it, the guy running it was a chiropractor. He wasn't even a doctor. And the one person that he had working as a technician was an ex-felon that had been, actually given this job, make sure everything runs right here, is acting as a doctor in many capacities.
Yeah, they gave him a fake name, fake credentials. None of it was real. The guy had, spent a lot of his time in prison. And so the parents who would go and get their children into this place assumed, okay, well, we have doctor number one who owns it and runs it, who says he has perfected this unique treatment, which turns out to not even really exist. And then they've got the other doctor, the former inmate. Well, this guy went to Harvard and he went to all these places. Nope, he went to prison. He didn't ever go to medical school. And then they're getting $235,000 per student from the state each year. This school is. It is a money-making scam.
Well, it is, but which leads you to the problem that is bigger for New York. It's bigger for a lot of big cities right now, and that the regulators, forget it. There are no regulators. There's nobody watching anything. And it goes to the idea of other things that are happening with the infrastructure in New York. The garbage collection, that ties right into the story. What's happening there? Our regulators aren't regulating. Social services are not working. That's why this happened. Subway services. I mean, we can't even get our subways working without crime problems, without delay problems, without breakdowns. You've got an epidemic of homelessness going on up there. When I looked at this story and when I compared what is different about what's going on in some of these bigger cities, this is it. This story to me is the metaphor for the entire infrastructure. When you have this going on for apparently years, you have it going for years.
Yeah, I mean,
and there's no regulator there, there's no politician there, there's nobody looking at what the hell's going on. It kind of ties into the rest of the things that are going on in cities like LA or New York or Chicago. This is part of the problem right now.
Well, it really is, because an organization like this with this many problems, this many fake credentials, phony surgery, and kids going to the hospital because of the phony surgeries, this should have been shut down after about 6 months. But you've got a city that is so plagued with so very many problems and so few people to deal with them, if they want to deal with them at all, that it's almost, sitting here thinking about it, is that city too big now?
Yeah.
Do we need to break it into two cities to be able to function?
Interesting thing. It was American Experience. It's a PBS show. They analyze the same way you do. You probably haven't seen that, but they came up with an analysis. Are cities reaching this point where this kind of thing's going to happen because there's nobody watching. Like it's a Mad Max movie taking place right there in the city. PBS, American Experience, it talks about New York City chaos and what's happening there. Why does this kind of case arise? How could this go on? We got doctor who's not even a doctor, he's a chiropractor, doing experiments that aren't even legitimate experiments with a friend who's an ex-felon living under an assumed name who are taking care of kids, special needs children with mental disabilities. How does that happen for years? It happens because there's a breakdown in the infrastructure. And that I think goes to the heart of this case.
Maybe time to break them up.